Hi everybody, it's another episode of Hooner History, and welcome to Highclere Castle, the spectacular home of Downton Abbey, one of the great TV shows of all time. And if you're a fan of the show, when you walk through the front doors right there, all these scenes from all those years will flash before your eyes. I mean, you'll have Lord Grantham when you walk in the library and all the heartache he dealt with. Remember when he lost his fortune? But all the joy as well. In fact, I think my favorite moment of any episode is when Lady Mary is about to be married. She comes down the staircase and there's Carson, the butler, and her father. And she says, "Well, Carson, will I do?" Of course, she looks spectacular. She turns to her father, Lord Grantham, and she says, "Are you happy, Father?" And he says, I think he says something to the effect of, "I'm so happy, I feel my buttons could burst." So, a lot of other great scenes and memories, all from right inside this castle, including, of course, when Grandmama Maggie Smith, with her witticisms at the dinner table. The dining room's incredible. I mean, she has... she's got all the great lines, including, "What is a weekend?" You know, when you lived her life, I think every day was like Saturday or Sunday or something like that. Anyway, such a great show, and one I know that I enjoyed over the years. But there's another story to be told here inside Highclere Castle that I just wanted to share with you because it's absolutely fascinating, and it's deep below the castle, way down in the basement, and it's the story of King Tut, if you can believe it. It turns out that the 5th Lord Carnarvon, which we're a few generations past that now for the current Lord Carnarvon, but the 5th was a really fascinating guy. In 1901, he was in a pretty bad car accident and his health started to suffer. He decided to spend his winters in Egypt. And as he went down here from kind of cold and rainy England to Egypt, he began to get more and more fascinated about the pyramids and the pharaohs and the history, and he decided to kind of become an archaeologist of sorts. So he hired a friend of his, Howard Carter, the two of them had this goal of maybe discovering the tomb of an ancient pharaoh. And sure enough, they did, although it took a long time. Like I said, 1901 was the car accident. A few years after that, he started spending every winter there in Egypt. And it was 1923 when they made the discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun, and actually opened it to the public, or maybe to select members of the media and the government there in Egypt in 1923. I believe it was February of 1923. And yet 6 weeks later, Lord Carnarvon was dead. There was speculation, there's been talk, was there a curse of the tomb? Who knows? I mean, it sounds like something out of Indiana Jones, right? But that was the way his life ended, was there in Egypt. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But his friend Howard Carter, for years later, spent time in the tomb cataloging over 5,000 items that were actually buried in there in this relatively small tomb of King Tut. And so as you look kind of at the sweep of the panorama of the castle and the grounds here, you can just visualize the kind of the heartache that the family dealt with when they suddenly got word that after this great discovery had been made, that Lord Carnarvon had suddenly taken ill. And the thing that killed him, if you can believe it, was he cut himself shaving, and it got infected, and he got sepsis, and was gone within 6 weeks. And yet, what a fascinating guy. And to have made this discovery, and they actually have some of the artifacts from the tomb of Tutankhamun on display here in the basement. You can learn a little bit more about the life of King Tut, and also about the life of Lord Carnarvon, whose passing certainly came at an untimely time, just 56 years old. Anyway, just one more great story here. A lot of people come for Downton Abbey, but if you're at all fascinated by the history of Tutankhamun, it's worth a visit as well. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Ron Hooner History. If you haven't subscribed, can I ask you to do so? That would be great. I have to do that and give a shout out to Mason, my grandson. Kind of helps me with these YouTube videos. I need to ask that every time. We're going to get up to 500 subscribers before you know it. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for listening.